A Luke Hogan production, we bring you Starving GMOs.
Hi, my name is Luke Hogan, and I'm here to tell you about GMOs, genetically modified organisms, and the damage that they cause to our environment each and every day. So today, as I stand here with products behind me, I want you to know that these products that you love contain GMOs. They don't have to contain GMOs, but they do. And as a result, all of these products here are contributing to the destruction of our environment. So as you look at the face of these products that you love, remember, this doesn't have to be the way it is, and we can stop GMOs. And yes, this is bacon, and I love bacon. Thank you.
The goal of this project was to eat a genetically modified organism-free diet. Two exceptions to this change were going out to eat and eating GMO-fed meat. Other than these exceptions, I tried to starve myself of GMOs for 5 weeks. I also recorded the amount of money and the consumption I had of GM food for 2 weeks before I made any lifestyle change. All of this allowed me to form a reasonable comparison between the two lifestyles and also allowed conclusions to be drawn on a larger scale. To show the importance of this project, I will delve into all of the negative environmental impacts associated with GMOs. In order to understand the basis of the problem with GMOs, it is crucial to understand Monsanto. Monsanto is the creator and main producer of GM crops. They are also the company who brought us Agent Orange and Roundup. Monsanto specifically creates GMOs to be Roundup ready, meaning that these crops are engineered to be able to resist the Roundup herbicide. According to Dr. John Fagan, a former genetic engineer, over 75% of all GM crops are made to be herbicide resistant, and this has led directly to herbicide resistant superweeds. This has in turn caused an increase in the use of herbicides in an attempt to kill off these superweeds. This pattern was clearly seen with the herbicide use of GMO corn. In 2001, GMO corn required treatment of 1.5 pounds of herbicide per acre, and in 2010, that number rose to more than 2 pounds per acre of corn. First, these herbicides pollute the environment by washing off into lakes, rivers, etc. Additionally, herbicides have also been shown to cause extensive damage to animals in the environment. Along with the herbicides sprayed on the GM crops themselves have shown to be toxic to the environment. In terms of animals, both bees and monarch butterflies have been endangered by GM crops. Also, in terms of soil, GM crops take all the nutrients from the soil but do not return any of the nutrients to the soil. This limits the biodiversity of the soil and makes it so that only GM crops can be grown on that soil. Another problem is that GM crops spread rapidly through cross-pollination. This means that GM crops naturally spread to non-GMO farms and pollute their crops. If this happens, farmers must either pay a large amount of money to remove the GM crops from their farms, or must begin buying and growing GM crops themselves. Also, Monsanto created GM seeds so they cannot be replanted. This was done to force farmers to continuously buy the GM seeds rather than be able to reuse them as they can with natural crops. The last and scariest part of genetically modified organisms is the potential for expansion going forward. Take a look at this scene from Seeds of Death as it examines just one market where GMOs are expanding to.
There's a genetically modified salmon that was created by Canadian researchers that was tested up in Canada. They put these frankenfish into tanks and they fed them sufficient food and there was no problem. When they reduced the amount of food, the frankenfish freaked. They started killing and eating their neighbors. So what happens if the FDA approves these frankenfish and let's say they escape into the ocean? I don't know what's worse, the extinction of natural salmon or the roving of these frankenfish going around and killing and attacking other species and changing the whole ecosystem balance.
They both have a mating advantage because they're larger, but they have a survival disadvantage, and it's that combination that should a male transgenic fish escape into the wild cause the rapid collapse and extinction of both transgenic and wild fish in as little as 50 generations.
Science.
I literally want to throw up right now. That is absolutely nauseating. So after seeing that clip and hearing everything you've heard about the damages already being caused by GMOs, is there any doubt that this project to rid a diet of GMOs was so crucial for our environment? I think not. And if you think that this project was not important, you should stop watching, because we're never going to be on the same page about anything at all. Ever. Thank you. Let's enjoy the rest of the video. Table 1 shows the GMO food consumption I had at the grocery store before making any lifestyle changes. This table clearly demonstrates the wide variety of everyday items that contain GMOs. The majority of processed items in the grocery store aisles contain at least one GMO ingredient. As a matter of fact, the Non-GMO Project cites that approximately 80% of processed foods contain GMOs. Table 2 shows the GMO products that I consumed after trying to change my diet to be GMO free. Over 5 weeks, as compared to just 2 weeks for the control test in Table 1, the GMO consumption was far less. This table shows that it is clearly possible to eliminate, or nearly eliminate, GMOs from your diet. However, it is worth noting that I did not avoid all GMOs during this experiment. This was due to a momentary lapse of willpower in a few situations. Table 3 serves as the true comparison of my spending and eating habits before and after making the GMO-free change. This table will allow for relatively accurate statements to be made about the implications of this experiment. Table 3 demonstrates that almost half of a grocery bill for an average shopper goes towards foods containing GMOs. However, this table also demonstrates that this is not needed. Buying GMO-free at the grocery store proved to cost just a little more than $1 extra per week. For that extra dollar, the consumer is getting more nutritious food that is responsibly farmed. It must be noted that certain parts of the data may be flawed or misleading. First, GMO-fed meat was not considered as a GMO product for the purpose of this experiment. However, a high percentage of GM crops are used in feed for different animals across the United States and the world. For example, the ISAAA quotes that 90% of GMO soy grown around the world is used in animal feed. If an individual wanted to go fully GMO free and eliminate GM fed meat, their average weekly spending would most likely increase. Also, it is worth noting that no crop is completely GM produced. Therefore, it is possible that certain items listed as having GMOs could actually have been GMO free. An example of this is that only 50% of sugar beets are GM crops. The data allows for implications to be made for both myself and citizens of the United States. I expand only to U.S. citizens because the U.S. is the world leader in GMOs, and we in the U.S. all possess the ability to become informed on this topic. First, the data implies that I was relatively successful in my project goal. Although I did not go completely GMO-free, I reduced my GMO spending by nearly 50%. Second, the data shows that it is financially feasible for U.S. citizens to eat GMO-free. My spending difference weekly
was negligible throughout this experiment. It is clear that GMOs cause unnecessary damage to the environment. It is also clear that the price of not eating GMOs is not nearly as high as some may believe. Therefore, my recommendation for the United States is to rid this country of GMOs by refusing to buy and consume them. This is the best way to get GMOs out of this country. There are 4 great ways to eat GMO-free. First, the Non-GMO Project is a great way to start shopping GMO-free. The Non-GMO Project offers verification and labeling for non-GMO products. Another way to avoid GMOs is to eat organic produce and meats. Although even organic farms have the potential of containing small amounts of GM crops from cross-pollination, the amount is so minute that the damages are negligible. Outside of items that are non-GMO verified and organic, ingredients must be reviewed carefully. If an item has an ingredient that could possibly stem from one of the 8 GM crops in the United States, it should be avoided. Lastly, the safest option, the best way to know that your food is not containing GMOs, is to grow your own food. Although this is the most time-consuming way to avoid GMOs, it is also the safest bet. The environmental issues associated with GMOs can be tied into a variety of environmental theories and ethics. However, I argue that Wendell Berry and Brian Norton best support a decision not to consume GMOs. Wendell Berry takes a specific attack on specialization in his writing. He argues that people are so specialized that they only care about money and are too blinded to see the effects of their actions. This describes the problem with Monsanto and the GM crop system perfectly. Monsanto has shown consistently that their goal is to make money, not protect the lives of individuals consuming their products. Additionally, the GMOs are created by individuals who specialize in genetic breeding but are blind to the negative sides of these actions. Berry would call for every individual to broaden their perspective and see the damage caused by GMOs to the environment and the human species. Berry would tell people that they should turn away from specialization and become a responsible consumer. After learning about GMOs, this responsible consumer would have no choice but to buy responsible grown food, or grow their own food responsibly like Berry himself. Berry's view is one of the 2 strongest because he leaves no room for ignorance because of specialization. He makes it clear that each person is responsible for understanding the implications of their actions and consumptions. Weak anthropocentrism fits perfectly with this project because it deals with science and the consequences of science in sufficient depth. Norton would argue against the consumption of GMOs because of how they are irresponsibly produced. Norton leaves no room for any form of science that will harm future generations or damage the environment. GM crops are doing both of these things each and every day. GMOs are ruining good farmland and making it so that soil cannot be reused for future generations. GMOs are increasing the use of herbicides that are then being washed into our oceans and rivers. GMOs are being increasingly linked to diseases like cancer. Overall, GMOs are causing clear harm to both our future generations as well as our current environment. Seeing as we have the scientific evidence to back these claims up, Norton would find no room to excuse the consumption of GMOs. He would call for science to come up with alternative, more responsible farming methods to help feed the surplus population. Norton would call for a solution that preserves the trust, not destroys it. Norton provides one of the 2 strongest supporting theories because of his openness to the use of science, as long as it is done responsibly. Norton can meet GMO proponents halfway and say that science can and should be used to help, but this must be done responsibly. Therefore, he would say that we must stop the consumption of GMOs and start to work for another solution to solve our food problems.
Hi, I'm back in the kitchen, and those GMO crap products are long gone. I hope now, after watching this video, that you know that GMOs are destroying our environment, but I hope you also realize that there is hope, that we can indeed eliminate these GMOs from our diet and eventually from our world. So thank you very much for taking the time to watch my video.